One of the great features about Bryston's Artist View in the BDP is how it aggregates your local music collection with your TIDAL collection. If you have a TIDAL account for lossless internet streaming, you can enter your TIDAL credentials in media player settings. So that's the sprocket up in the top right corner. You click that sprocket, go down to TIDAL, enter in your username and password. You can set sound quality either as high, which is a 320 kilobit per second MP3, or if you own a BDP-3, chances are you want lossless, so you'll select lossless, click the save button once your credentials are entered, and your BDP will have access to TIDAL at that point. You can play music directly out of TIDAL, or you can use Artist View to find missing releases in TIDAL. So here you see I've clicked on Pink Floyd. We have a copy of Dark Side of the Moon here on the drive. If I want to see what else we're missing by Pink Floyd, I'll hit Missing Releases. The BDP will query MusicBrainz online and then find a large number of albums that we don't have on our local drive. Now we can tell the difference between albums that are stored on our drive or are being streamed from TIDAL by the TIDAL logo in the lower right corner of each. To play one of these, you can simply click a track to just play a track, or press the play button to play the album. The tracks will go into your playlist, and it will be indistinguishable from a local music playback on your device. You can even build playlists that include both TIDAL tracks as well as local music tracks, from your own hard drive. TIDAL can also be accessed through default view on the BDP. Once you open Media Player, click on Default View, you see the list of drives and metadata sorts down the right-hand side. Close to the bottom, you'll find TIDAL. If you click on TIDAL, you have a variety of playlists, What's New, Rising, Moods, all familiar to you if you've used TIDAL's own interface. Any music that is stored as a favorite will show up under My Music. And if you want to query TIDAL for a specific artist or album or track, simply click search up in the top and enter in your query. So if I want to listen to Cass McCombs, I start typing Cass McCombs at the top. Instantly I see hits under artist. If I type in an album, or if I'm searching for an album, I can find any albums that match my query under that category, playlists and tracks as well. So if I want to expand any one of these, just simply click the down arrow. I can pick my my chosen search result and add to the playlist to get things going from there. Bryston offers a product called the BOT1. The BOT1 lets you connect our optical drive to any generation BDP and rip CDs, playback CDs, or even burn a playlist to a CDR. The most common application for a BOT1 is ripping your discs. If you've got a large CD collection and a BDP-3 with connected storage, either on an NAS or a local drive, you can use the BOT1 to rip and organize that music. To access the ripping application for the BOT1, from the dashboard, simply click Applications and CD Backup. Once you click CD Backup, you're presented with a user interface that gives you all the information that you need to know about the disk that's currently inserted into the BOT1. Now, before we get to actually ripping this disk, let's do a quick setup of the BOT1. By default, the BOT1 is configured to rip your music in FLAC. The destination is the first disk it finds. So here we've got a disk called Untitled, plugged in by USB. If you want to change that destination or use a subfolder, simply click on the window. You can click on a disk, find the folder that you want to use as your home base for music, and click Done when you're satisfied with the results. You can build a naming structure, how you want your files named on the disk. This is a typical structure. You can use our default. Here we use the album artist / name of the album / track number .track name. This is a very common nomenclature. Unless you already have a specific format that you want to use, using our default is probably the best bet. There's also a separate naming structure for various artists' albums, like original motion picture soundtracks, compilations, etc. We also store a separate image file in each album folder. This field is where you title that album image. By default, we use folder, so that would generate a folder.jpg file. You can also use cover.jpg or front.jpg. Whatever you choose, be sure it's consistent with media player settings so that your album art is properly detected by the BDP. Below that are some advanced options. You can use the built-in RAM in the BDP as a temporary location to hold the raw WAV files before they're encoded into your chosen file type. If you want to create an MP3 copy, perhaps to put on a separate drive and plug into your car, you can do that. If you are anxious and want to speed up the ripping process, you can disable the verification process and advanced tagging. If for some reason you have trouble ripping certain disks, you might try rerunning them again with advanced tagging also disabled. Once you insert a disk into the BOT1, the BDP recognizes that disk and searches the internet for metadata that matches that disk. Most of the time, this information is pretty accurate, especially with major releases by major artists. If you have discs that are produced by lesser known artists or are produced in small quantities, you might not always get the right hit. In that case, you can click on the meta window and find other options that match your disk to some degree, and click on that disk to have metadata repopulated. Any of these fields can be edited by hand. If you notice a misspelling, for instance, in an artist name, you can simply click on the field, rename the artist. Any of these options at the top will apply to every track on the disk. The options below for individual tracks can also be edited, but each one of these edits is going to apply individually to each track. Last but not least, we want to capture the correct album art for each disc. You can click on the album art selector. At the top, you see the currently recognized album art. Unless you make changes, this is the art that will be used once the music is tagged. If it's not quite right or the color is not quite what you're looking for, you can pick one of the other images found on the internet, or you can even enter a custom URL from the internet and enter any URL that ends with JPG or PNG, maybe from a Google image search or some other image source online, and that art will apply to your ripped tracks. Close the panel when you're done. Once you're satisfied with the way the metadata appears, you can simply click Backup to execute the backup process. You'll hear your BOT1 spin up, get an alert in the lower right corner saying initiating CD backup, and then you can follow the progress of your rip on a track per track level by taking note of the percentage read from disk. As the BOT1 rips a CD, you'll see the status indicated beside each track. Once the track is read from the disk, a temporary WAV file is generated. The WAV file is then encoded into FLAC or your chosen music format. Once the encoding process is done on that track, you'll see a message that says completed. Once the track is completed, it's available to playback or to add to a playlist. Once the disk is done ripping, it will automatically be ejected from the BOT1 and the system will be ready to accept the next disk.